What was that juicy hometown high school rumor that turned out to be true? Nsfw. That'll do it. It's a very effective way to get into jail. Are the good ol' push it up the ass. Male history teacher was having sex with, fooling around with, and videotaping female students that were below legal age. He's in jail now. That the biology teacher hated the principal so much that he repeatedly set the class tarantula loose to sway her away from visiting his part of the school. That's kind of fucking awesome. I had this teacher at my school who was super fucking old. Like the dude was a tall version of the crypt keeper. He refused to retire though. Why? Because that son of a bitch knew that if he retired his whore ex-wife would get half of his pension. So, he decided to keep teaching high school shitheads just to keep her hands off his money. Mad props. That the girl in my class had a sister a year older who had been locked in a closet since she was 5 years old. Turned out to be true and mom and dad went to prison. The girl was mentally handicapped and they just decided to lock her in the closet and only let her out to clean out the closet. She ate in there and defecated in a bucket. What actual fuck? Sick people out there. This happened back in 1968. We had known them from 3rd grade as we went to the same elementary school. Never knew a thing about it until one of the younger brothers mentioned it to his grade school teacher. Police investigated and had social services pick up all the kids. Only knew what happened to the parents from the papers. I never saw the girl in my class ever again. Entire family just seemed to disappear. Sounds a lot like Jeannie. I guess her letter to Hogwarts never came. The super smart girl who got into all the top schools was so depressed at an Ivy League because she was no longer the smartest person and had to drop out after one semester. It was a big deal because she scored an almost perfect SAT score and was the first in our high school to go there. This is really common. The kid goes from the top of her class to nothing special. It fucks with their minds. They aren't taught how to fail and have almost no experience with it. This can cripple a lot of gifted students because their fear of failure, ironically, can make them only seek easy goals or give up when something difficult crosses their path. The complete opposite happened to me. I went to an elite high school where I was super average to being one of the smarter students at my college. People were shocked that I had a 2,100 on the SAT. That was subpar at my high school. State schools. I went because it was basically free for a comparable education. One of my friends went to NYW. They're charging like $70k now. During freshman orientation week at Princeton. Who here was valedictorian or salutatorian? Almost every student raised his hand. Not anymore. Only one of you will be that, and you'll never even meet him. There was a rumor that our AP economics teacher was having an affair with our married AP US history teacher. Rumor only grew steam when she filed for divorce just before graduation. 2 years after I graduated, my friend who worked at a daycare texted me a picture of the two of them dropping off her two kids. Why the fuck would you videotape that? I mean, why would you do it in the first place? But then to go out of your way to create evidence? Uncanny. It's not only evidence, but it is also possession of child pornography and creation of said pornography. I think that's a worse charge. Manufacture of child pornography, and yeah, they'd get someone on that also while they're at it. I've even heard of cases where 16-year-old girls would take nudes and send them to someone only to get hit with manufacturing and distributing. My dad went to school with Butch Hartman, the creator of The Fairly Odd Parents. My dad was pretty popular in high school. Butch wasn't. My dad liked him and was really good friends with him. But he was just the one weird kid that happened to be an amazing artist. They had no idea that he was as good as he was until everyone started talking about where they were going to college. And it turns out he was on a full ride to the Walt Disney School for the Arts, later became the California Institute of Art. My college is right down the street from there. They call it the Disney Apple Picking Basket. Man, I really loved him in Boardwalk Empire. The show was just not the same without him. Supposedly his character was originally supposed to continue on in the show, but he was too difficult to work with on set, so they wrote him off the show. That this girl in grade 10, aged 15/16, stabbed her father around Christmas time. Everyone was talking about it and it turned out to be true. The administration would suspend anyone talking about it. Edit. After going back and reading the article, turns out the father was pronounced dead. Rumors also went around that she got locked up. For those asking for the link, quiet neighborhood shaken after 15-year-old Mississauga girl charged with murdering father. National Post webpage. How did the admin justify suspending students for just talking about it? Edit for people who don't wanna scroll down for the real answer. Canadian law protects the identity of convicted minors, so suspension was used to stop high school kids spreading the story and to keep the girl's identity private. Till. Thanks Reddit. Administration at school don't need justification. They have complete power and protection. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Disruption of academic environment? Honestly, it doesn't matter. In the US, at least, students basically have no rights. The administration would suspend anyone talking about it. That seems like an entirely appropriate and effective response. Wrestling coach owned a funeral home. A kid did an internship there and said the coach was selling body parts. Nobody believed him. Well, the coach is now in jail for selling organs and a shitload more things. Good ol' North Catholic. Edit. Yes, I am talking about Northeast Catholic in Philadelphia. As far as the kid doing the internship, I should have called it an apprenticeship. I know he wanted to be a mortician. From what I recall, he washed the cars and drove the limo, and after graduation he was going to get involved with the actual procedures. A shady funeral homeowner who is a wrestling coach. Was this him? IMGA webpage. There were rumors that a mystery kid was pooping in the janitor's closets. Everyone thought it was a stupid rumor until the principal made an announcement about it. They never caught the kid, but a few years later I found out who it was. It turned out to be a friend of mine. I wasn't shocked. This kid was strange. You could dare him to do anything and he would do it. He once ate part of a dissected frog on a dare. Another time he almost chugged bleach, but the teacher stopped him. TLDR. I was unknowingly friends with the mad pooper. The butler. Meet Tina, our mad pooper. Rumor was one of the girls at my high school had a mom who was a porn star. Turns out her mom is Misty Vonage. No link. What is this? Amateur hour. Nsfw. IMGA webpage. She looks like Ben Stiller. What the hell? That is spot on. Starring Ben Stiller in the porn parody, Dodging Balls. She's a pretty ugly porn star. She's got that your friend's decent looking mom with giant tits thing going on, I guess. Was she a porn baby? Nobody ever knew for sure if she was or not. Product of a buckake gangbang. Hey, if that sperm can swim all the way from her face, it deserves to get her pregnant. Going to look her up to fact check to make sure you aren't lying. 27 minutes ago. Lol, you're jacking off right now, aren't ya, mate? When I was on active duty, someone joked, sometimes I like to chug a bottle of NyQuil and see if I can jerk off before I fell asleep. The thought of this made me laugh hysterically, but then he said, bet you can't do it. And that, my friend, is how I fell asleep to Backdoor Sluts 9 with my junk in my hand. I'm pretty sure this task is impossible. Prioritizes family values. Yep, this is our guy. That a 7th grader was bringing vodka in a water bottle and would drink it throughout the day. Yeah, turns out she brought 5 and got alcohol poisoning and had to be rushed to the hospital. Happened at my school, but it was the valedictorian and she had been injecting the alcohol into her morning orange. Edit. Wow, didn't expect that. She had been a good kid. Her dad got really sick and died after junior year. After that she wasn't the same. She kept her grades but was a bit of a shell. A zombie. Just going through the motions. Not many people knew about the orange thing. Even after that fact, I found out because one of my parents worked in the office, and this girl's mom volunteered. People talk. Why wasn't I valedictorian? That's another story for another day. I thought morning orange was a euphemism for her vagina. Fuck her right in the morning orange. Putting the screw in screwdriver. Nice. Our valedictorian was addicted to Darryl. I actually can't think of a better drug for a valedictorian to be addicted to. Academics. 3 their amphetamine. Anya Darryl. The way Alien Blue split that comment up. Morning orange was separate from the rest and I got really worried for a second. Do you inject the marijuanas into your brownies? How is it that a 7th grader got that much alcohol and yet my classmates have trouble getting 5ths? Edit. I'm just surprised they managed to get that much. Also 7th graders are now drinking, holy shit. Parents cabinet. My mom has a whole cabinet in the kitchen full of alcohol 24/7. If I wanted to drink I easily could. Yep. There was a girl in my class in grade 6 who was starting to rebel against her parents by drinking. She filled her water bottle with her parents' vodka and drank it through class, only to be caught by a teacher when her face turned red after taking a drink. We didn't see much of that girl after. Texan here. Nowadays you get arrested on sight and have to go to court. Also lose your driver's license or the ability to get one as a minor. Heck, I've seen kids in court just for disrupting class. Edit. For those doubting me about court for class disruptions, I was last in court in 2013. Public school students in Texas who have chewed gum in class, talked back to teachers or disrupted class have often received citations from school police officers. Beginning in September, students who engage in such levels of misbehavior will face discipline in a different manner, while school administrators and teachers have traditionally handled student discipline. Some school districts in Texas over the years have allowed school police officers to deal with certain types of misbehavior by charging students with Class C misdemeanors, a practice commonly referred to as student ticketing. Students charged must appear before a county or municipal judge and can face fines of up to $500 if found guilty by a judge. There's a lot of money in putting people in jail, and making sure they continue to end up in jail. I stole a bottle of my dad's scotch and brought it to our school's second grade horse camp. The teachers caught me and took it. Later that night when I snuck out I saw them all drinking it in the dinner hall. I never got in trouble. How is nobody asking what the fuck is second grade horse camp? Pretty self-explanatory. A camp for second grade horses. Same. It's a really good way to get the responsibility part down young. The trust makes you kinda wanna listen. Listen to the whines of shit Randy. Shit whines are a common. When you're underage you basically have nearly limitless access to alcohol or nearly none. The old can do middle school attitude. I can't drink alcohol normally, so I'll put it in a water bottle and take it to school. Nobody will ever know. I mean, let's be real here. This girl definitely knew vodka wasn't the answer, but it was worth a shot. She probably did sips instead of shots. It was a Gatorade bottle at my school. I gave her a piece of gum in social studies so she could cover up the smell on her breath. Damn, this girl gets around. This one is really random, but here goes. That there was a group of kids, high school males, mostly football players, who called themselves the Ricky Lake Club, who would hide out in different classrooms, risking some serious detention time, to watch the late 90s Ricky Lake daytime talk show during lunch. A guy in my grade would constantly brag about this, and it became kind of a joke, but no one actually believed that it was a real thing because, I mean, come on, we'd all be going to the lunchroom and he'd go, "Sorry guys, it's Ricky time," and run off. We all thought he was getting high or something. So it turns out, this did actually happen. Very frequently, and there were a substantial group of people sneaking off to do it. As I'm told, one kid, whose mom worked in the front office, stole a master schedule of the classrooms, revealing when they would be empty. Also, classrooms were never locked. This was well before 9/11. Lunch was at noon, which was when the show came on. The club president would be CC an email list each week saying what rooms to meet in on which days. Long story short, I was encouraged to join in the fun one day, so in disbelief I snuck out of the lunchroom to the back of the band room, the chosen empty room that day, which somehow had a TV, and sure enough, there were about 25 high school age males, going apeshit, as quietly as possible, at the TV watching the Ricky Lake show. Apparently this went on for all of my sophomore year without anyone finding out, until Mr. Turner, the computer teacher, stumbled in on the group and the whole thing fell apart like the end of Goodfellas. TLDR. An underground club at my high school called the Ricky Lake Club actually existed, where students utilized a stolen master classroom schedule to successfully dodge school authorities to watch the daytime talk show and quietly go apeshit in random classrooms around the school in secret for a whole school year. I love and respect everything about this. I knew that, in the hair-like mountains of awful sexual transgressions, there would be a needle of pure awesome. I'm glad I kept scrolling. When my boyfriend was in high school, there was a sub there who was subbing while finishing college, whose mom had been a teacher at the school for years. This girl eventually ends up fucking half the football team and has pictures of her tits going around. They let her resign instead of pressing charges. I'm assuming because of her mom being there for so long and because some of the students were of age. So a couple of weeks ago we hired a new attorney at the law firm I work for. It's her. Touchdown tits. ESQ. When I was 13 years old, a girl and a boy from my class stopped going to school for some days. As silly kids as we were, we started joking that they were getting together to make babies and ended up missing the classes. The boy was just sick. The girl was actually pregnant. No, it was an older guy. I don't know how older. Tough, maybe 3 or 4 years. How long did the boy catch shit for it anyway? We stopped mentioning it a week after we heard about it. Everybody in class was in shock. Nobody thought it would actually happen. They changed school after it, or dropped. I really don't know. And had another child sometime later. This was 4 years ago. In high school my chemistry teacher came in high on acid. He ended up army crawling all the way down to the main office where the cops were called. Everyone in the class got an F because nobody thought to neutralize it with a base. You got an F because neutralizing an acid with a base results in a strong chemical reaction that can result in chemical burns. That's why you use a basic bitch. They're ice cold. Pam. No. The solution to every problem isn't throwing freaking acid on it, Krieger, unless the problem is a solution with an overly alkaline pH balance. I need more details on this ASAP. 18-year-old guy gets caught finger blasting a 14-year-old in the upstairs hallway. For a whole 2 months or so no one was allowed upstairs during lunch. This happened last year, and this year all of the lockers and classes are moved downstairs. Must suck being homeschooled. It's the worst. Your school actually has few enough students where they could just move all the classes downstairs? Yup, that's how I knew the story was legit. There's only 350 of us. I can probably name everyone and their parents. Do it. Garrett, 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 Stan, Garrett, 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 Garai. You lived in Vault 108? One of the popular jarhead class clown types was accused of sexual assault on the bustiest girl at the school for biting her left tit. I've heard of being thirsty, but that dude was hungry. I think I've been hungry once in my life to be honest. That reminds me of the party story. I was at a party once and I'm sitting there drinking with one of my cousins and we hear bloody murder screams coming from the next room. We go in there and there's a guy have a seizure on the floor, his entire face covered in blood, and a girl on the bed with some blood on her and she's holding her boobs. We go over to the guy to having the seizure and make sure his head won't bounce off the ground again, and the girl is still screaming. My cousin yells at her to shut up and she screams, "He ripped my nipple off." I go over and look at it. Sure enough, he ripped it clean off. We got the bleeding under control and in walks the host, asks us what's happening. We tell him and he calls 911. We removed the nipple from the guy's mouth as soon as he stopped having the seizure. Both of them got taken away in ambulances. He had woken up and she hadn't stopped screaming. I wish I could say I knew how this story ended, but I don't. WTF. So dude is sucking on her nipple when he has a seizure? Talk about terrible damn timing. Jeez, poor girl. All I can think of is that could have been way worse. Don't know about you all, but for me, given that the general pattern is kissing, boobs, oral sex, if he'd had a seizure 5 minutes later, might have been way worse. Or way better. Nice tidbit. A boob in the mouth is worth 10 in the bra. A guy bit another guy's left tit once in school. My school was weird. But was he the bustiest guy at your school? I think I've seen this porno. That a freshman girl popped her cherry with the wide part of a shampoo bottle. She took pictures and sent said pictures to a group of guys in the sophomore class, telling them to keep it private. Everyone saw and she wound up transferring. My school had a girl who put a shampoo bottle in her bag and sent pics around as well. Maybe we all had one in our school. People thought our vice principal was banging one of the security officers. Eventually we found out he left his wife and they started dating. So that was true. Another was that people suspected that our resource officer was a pothead. For anyone that doesn't know, our resource officer is an actual police officer with the city and not a regular security guard. Well, my buddy is a recovering drug addict. He apparently was selling weed to the officer back in high school. Not many people knew about that one though. Our resource officer was arrested for selling coke to students by undercover officers. There were rumors that the 40-year-old band teacher was romantically involved with a female student. All parties denied it and the administration bought it and apparently chalked it up to bullshit rumors from gossipy kids. A year after she graduated he left his wife and 2 kids and married her. Edit. One of the really odd things about this situation is that this student was smoking hot and really popular. She was our school's female track star, captain of the volleyball team and an honors student. The teacher was middle-aged, a little overweight and kind of an average-looking nerdy type. She seemed like the type that would have her pick of any guy she wanted. She was real sweet and made friends with everyone, though so I'm sure she saw something in him that others didn't. Edit 2. Wow. After reading the comments so far, I'm a little shocked to see that this isn't really as uncommon as I thought. This took place in the Hudson Valley region of NY. His wife should have known that he preferred to play in minor. Only if he gets the fingering right. In band, you learn that toeing is just as important as fingering. Maybe even more so. Had a version of this happen at my high school. Rumors of the school's star female, b-ball, v-ball, softball, athlete being a bit too close with her baseball coach. He was the gym teacher 45 plus, bit out of shape, balding and married to the female gym teacher, who was the JV girls basketball coach, with 2 kids. She was an extraordinarily attractive girl, was an amazing athlete and a good student. She was that girl of our school, the one that seemed to be friends with everyone. All the teachers loved. She literally could have dated damn near anyone. For 3 years there were rumors of the 2 of them, but pretty much everyone chalked it up to nothing more than kids being stupid. It was the little joke the students had with each other that no one actually believed. It was such a pervasive joke that it was effectively a nonsense comment among the student body. Oh, you went on a date with X last night? Did you see Mr. Gym Teacher? And then they're followed by eye rolls. Sure enough, she graduates HS and turns 18. A month later Mr. Gym Teacher has divorced his wife and moved into an apartment with her. She had been slated to go to a good school, one of the Georges I think, Washington, town, but instead decided to pass it up and live with her true love. School board went apeshit. The parents didn't seem particularly thrilled with a middle-aged man teaching their teenaged girls, after he had spent 3 years fucking one in secret anymore, and went apeshit. Her parents went apeshit. Everyone assumed his wife was going to kill him. She didn't, but she wiped him out in the divorce if remember correctly. Mr. Gym Teacher got a job, somehow, at another school, and star athlete got some random job and they settled into their dream life. After a year apparently she decided it wasn't the life for her, broke up with him and went to college. Was odd that the joke among the students ended up being true. How did you hear about the ending? She was a year older than me. So when she left him and went back to school she ended up at college with a friend of mine who got a bit of it. It also wasn't a huge town, not small either, and was a pretty big deal, so people knew bits and pieces of it through some manner or another. And then finally a friend of mine went to teach at our old HS for her first teaching gig. The teachers at the school would basically tell all the new teachers, hey, we are going to need you to go ahead and not fuck any of the students. You don't want to end up like our gym teacher. I get why one would want to fuck the hot 18-year-old student, but why the hell would you marry her? It's like the dude just had to double down on ruining her life or some shit. What ended up happening to them? Are they still together? I wish I knew. This was over 10 years ago. I can't imagine a 40-plus-year-old and a 19-year-old having enough in common to sustain a marriage for long. Though, he kept his job, though, he had tenure. There was no evidence they did anything before she graduated and they ended up married, so I guess the administration couldn't really do anything. At the time, my 21-year-old girlfriend and I broke up. Maybe 3 months later she started dating her 50-year-old biology professor at university. They never married, but they're still together to this day, and that's been more than 20 years. He's got a 5-year plan. What is it? Not die? Is that the guy with the old balls? Oh, Big Daddy. Haven't seen that one in a while. I think this was more common than we'd like to believe. My high school Spanish teacher's girlfriend had been his student, and it was common knowledge that they had gotten together while she was still a student. What instrument did she play? The skin flute, the oboe, the violin out. A meeting of the Future Farmers of America Club at my high school turned into a massive oral sex orgy. It was just rumors for a while until the administration confirmed it and those involved were punished severely. Membership in FFA spiked though. It was a seed exchange. Membership in FFA spiked though. Dude, did you hear about how the FFA club got busted for having a sex ring going on? What? Really? I can't believe those rednecks started a sex club. That's ridiculous. I know. Right? Yeah, yeah, right. So, if I'm gonna raise a goat, do you think I need to rent stable space? Or can I just keep it in my backyard? I dunno. I'm thinking I'll raise a steer, so I'm gonna have to get one anyway. We were all at band camp and it was rumored that one of the girls in my class, 17 or so at the time, was pregnant. I laughed at the idea when I heard it. Sure, she had a big, baggy shirt on each day, but despite all the jokes, band camp is generally tough on the body. 10 plus hours of marching each day, plus hours of music practice. She'd have to be far enough along that she'd know that submitting herself to that kind of exertion in the heat for a week was a bad idea. She left camp early and both she and her baby nearly died from what she put herself through. He was premature and had all sorts of problems, but thankfully, it turned out okay. The school and teachers tried to cover the pregnancy up, because her mom was rather influential, but when she came back to school telling her story and showing off pictures, yeah, that the vice principal was cheating on his terminally ill wife with the cheerleading coach, it was true and everyone knew. He got promoted to principal, moved his office to the conference room in the library. Conveniently and simultaneously, the cheerleading coach became the librarian. Bath. I bet when he learned his ex-wife was sick he immediately went to the airport, because it was terminal. I bet when he started cheating, he never flew first class, because he always wanted to be in coach. I bet he never told his wife about the coach, even after he got promoted. Based on principle, I bet when the coach became a librarian she took him to the non-friction section. Yes, I threw it up in the air for someone else to make a bath pun. Actually, it's a lot more common than you think. 1. When your loved one has a terminal disease, the end is not pleasant. It is a stressful time and period in the life of the carer. Many seek a semblance of normalcy. 2. You effectively stop being their spouse and start being their carer and caseworker. 3. Loyalty here counts as being there for them. Terminally ill patients beyond a certain point aren't fun to hang out with. Many a patient's spouse has secretly wished that they would just die. The suffering is too much. A lot of children are traumatized by how their parent died. If it is terminal it often isn't clean. Think weeping bed sores, agony and screaming. Everyone expects you to put up with it. After all, that's what everyone meant when they say till death. However, you and most people never expected to be having this sort of romance, so it's easier for them to say it. They aren't living that nightmare. 4. Terminally ill patients often simply try to continue their life. I know at least one whose disease meant that they forgot what they were doing, so would try shopping online only to purchase stuff they couldn't use. She would get furious when her husband cancelled the purchases, and these weren't small purchases. Things like I was hot, so I bought an AC. 5. There is no physical attraction in sex anymore, and sometimes you just want to feel normal. Imagine if you spent 6 years cleaning ass and no one saw you as attractive anymore. Often people cheat simply to feel good about themselves. When I talk to patients, I often talk to their spouse alone to see how they are holding up. Sometimes the disease is horrifically rough on the spouse who has to put up with abuse from someone who doesn't know or mean what they are saying. And there are people who won't understand them. It's easy to say be loyal but hard to do when someone you love keeps lashing out at you. Edit. Expanded as I was at work. Yeah, thankfully, not enough people know what it's like to care for someone for a long time leading up to their death. It becomes a chore and it adds a layer of guilt that cuts deep and doesn't really go away after the person has passed. And the guilt often compounds because, although they are grief-stricken, they are also relieved, but they feel that relief is an awful thing to feel after their spouse's so's family member's death. Relief is a very common emotion to feel after someone dies, particularly when their death is painful, very drawn out or traumatizing to their children. Ninja Edit. I'm sorry, I misread your post. I thought you said that the guilt doesn't go away until the person passes, not that the guilt does not go away. How was this confirmed true? He coulda just been fucking with y'all instead of the rest of the staff. Squeeze 95 was principal. The head high school principal was screwing a cheerleader and her mom while his wife was pregnant. He was asked to resign. He left and became the superintendent of another county. Screwing a cheerleader and her mom while his wife was pregnant. That is impressively fucked up. I think I've seen this on Pornhub. Yeah, the cheerleader and the mom are both played by 29-year-olds. It's legitimately impressive as well. I mean, if that was the sole purpose for my life, I still don't think I could achieve that. Read that as superintendent of another country. Thought it was a hell of a step up. Well, when you're doing a mother-daughter combo, the sky is the limit. No, grandma is probably the limit. Not if you own a shuffle. Super Nintendo Charmers. That's unbelievable. I literally don't believe it. Did the other county not check his record? Willingly resigning makes it easier to cover stuff up like this. The school doesn't want the reputation of that either. Everyone was always talking about how the pre-calculus teacher and the algebra teacher were screwing around. They were both married, but students would see them smiling at each other, even kissing in the halls. Turns out they were married to each other. She just kept her maiden name. I didn't find out till a few years later when I saw him on Facebook. I'm pretty sure they knew about the rumors and specifically said nothing to dispel them for shits and giggles. This reminds me of when I found out the band teacher and the art teacher were having a baby. They had different last names and I was in the 6th grade and for some reason I came to the conclusion that he just knocked her up. I couldn't figure out why everyone was talking about it. Nope. They were married and having a baby and I was just very naive. Edit. JFC, I used the word naive wrong. I explained my original logic in a comment below. Edit 2. Shout out to y'all who liked my use of the word naive. Also, it was a junior high in Indiana around 2005-2006. You didn't use the wrong word. Naive is perfectly appropriate. Of a person or action, showing a lack of experience, wisdom, or judgment. Naive definition of naive by Lexico webpage. You didn't have the experience, wisdom, judgment to guess that she had kept her last name. Sounds reasonable. I was about 14 before I realized my proper, conservative parents got married in late September and I was born in mid-March. It's well known that every baby after the first takes 9 months, but the interesting thing is the first can take as little as 3 months in my experience. Source, I'm priest from joke. My parents have been happily married for 35 years and they work at the same school district but in separate departments. At a function, our parents saw them together and whispered to one of my mom's co-workers, "Are the art teacher and photographer having a thing?" The co-worker said, "I hope so. They've been together for 25 years and have 2 kids. That's adorable." Once I was at my husband's work helping out with something for a volunteer project and he squeezed my tush, I thought, subtly, and gave me a quick smooch in passing cause he was running around so busy all evening. Later I was talking to someone and I mentioned that I was married to the project coordinator and he said, "Oh, thank God. I thought he was a pervo harassing you earlier. I was going to report him later so yeah, I now try to let everyone know we're married so people don't think my husband is a pervert who harasses his volunteers. He only gets to harass and be a perv to me. Dart. I'm pretty sure they knew about the rumors and specifically said nothing to dispel them because of all the kinky roleplay sex it afforded them. FTFY. So what's this gonna be tonight, honey? Well, you know how all those students think we're a couple, which we are? Yeah, well, Let's remember that we are, in fact, married, and we'll keep in mind that people know about us. MMMM. So kinky. Okay, that's really cute. During undergrad there were two profs I knew very well who were married and had different last names. Very common in academia. I was in a class with an acquaintance and I mentioned them and he said they always seemed to be together and kind of flirty, and then I told him they were actually married and he was surprised, but it explained a lot. Lol. This has probably happened in a bunch of places. There was a gym teacher who was really invested in his students when we were in middle school. Middle school was kind of the phase where we never really knew who was out to get us, but most of us thought the gym teacher was. He was smiling an astonishing amount of the time. Even when we were in the locker room getting undressed and dressed, many of us found it unnerving and a bit creepy, and there were many rumors going around that he was gay and into younger boys. Well, it turns out that in my final year of middle school, he got sacked, even after years of teaching, and everyone knew why he was sacked. We were wrong, though, since there was a twist. He had been touching a female classmate inappropriately. Many of us thought he was going to be sacked for something like that, at least a little, but I don't think a single one of us thought it would be for touching a girl. He sure proved us wrong. And that, kids, is why you should never judge people before you really get to know them. This comment has been overwritten by an open source script to protect this user and app's privacy. If you would like to do the same, add the browser extension GreaseMonkey Mozilla web page to Firefox and add this open source script Greasefork web page. Then simply click on your username on Reddit, go to the comments tab, and hit the new overwrite button at the top. School beauty pageant. Underdog big girl gets crowned. It was very after school special. However, it turned out that this happened. The winner's mom walked in on the judges saying that her daughter wasn't pageant material, freaked out and started crying, accused the judges of being sizeist, and somehow managed to convince them to crown her daughter anyway. The daughter found out and voluntarily gave back the crown to the runner-up, who was the actual winner. It was pretty humiliating for all involved. Coach having an affair with a student. He got fired and she transferred schools. Two students having sex in the back of the school bus, resulting in boys having to sit on one side and girls on the other forever. Two students having sex in the bathroom next to the gym. So many pregnancies, like a disproportionate amount based on our school size. Kid goes to jail for armed robbery for 30 days but only does the weekends because he comes from a good family. Co-salutatorians because the original salutatorian was caught cheating on an honors course and had the honors credit taken away. I went to a really small school, so it's funny that there are this many. My hometown had problems. Not to sound like a dick, but I'm gonna have to guess that your school was in the south, and possibly doesn't have actual sex ed classes, and that is literally the one reason why schools should not have beauty pageants. Not dickish at all. Alabama. Well spotted. You know, that was really a cool thing to do by the winning girl. I hope she has a great life. I saw her about a year ago at my cousin's wedding. She's married, got a couple of really cute kids. Seems like she's doing alright. Guy stopped coming to school. We jokingly declared he must be dead. We'd later find out that he actually was dead. That there was a GameCube with Super Smash in it hidden somewhere in the school along with a tiny TV and 4 controllers. One day at lunch my friend told me he found it and I didn't believe him. I didn't even believe it existed, but I wanted it to be true. So I snuck out of lunch with him and we went up through the theater and up into the room where they kept all the props for the plays, and sure enough, behind this big dusty couch there she was. It was like finding treasure except better. From that day on we ate our lunches there and played Smash until our thumbs hurt. That was senior year of high school and damn do I miss it. Finally, a comment that doesn't involve sex. Not unless you count me raping my friends in Smash. I've never met a person who claims that they didn't absolutely destroy their friends in Smash. Woke up 7 hours later and now I have dozens of stories of dudes who can't win in Smash Brothers. Thanks Reddit. That's because the people that didn't destroy their friends in Smash don't like to talk about Smash. Right here, get destroyed every time. I never talk about it. God, I loved getting some gaming in during high school and especially during senior year. All of the seniors had at least one period or block where we had a study hall, a teacher's assistant course, or a free period where we didn't need to even be in school. Naturally, during these non-courses we did absolutely nothing or as little as possible and tried to keep ourselves from being bored. Well, my one friend and this other kid were both good with computers and knew how to mess with the school's network and access settings, and they managed to conceal, for an entire school year, that large numbers of seniors and other younger students were engaging in giant Counter-Strike games over the school's LAN. We used to store the game on thumb drives that we all would bring to school, and we would all hold them up in the air like Randy Marsh did in the World of Warcraft South Park episode, IMG webpage, before we would plug them into the computers and start playing every week. My friends and I were cool with the freshman soccer coach and with this one teacher who taught Photoshop and just didn't care about his classes much. These guys were bros, so we could just walk into their classes, give them a head nod or wave, and they would acknowledge us and then just let us sit in an open seat and do whatever we wanted on their computers. My friends and I then just went to their classes or to some of the computers in the library during study hall and played Counter-Strike for over an hour every other day for the entire year, and only had the guy find out about it 3 weeks before graduation after some dipshit underclassmen left his game screen up on a computer somewhere in the school. We used to talk shit to each other over the network through Counter-Strike as well and kill all of the non-seniors to maintain our supremacy. It was great. I miss that so much about high school. I loved just fucking off during senior year and doing nothing or whatever. A guy in my year in secondary school, high school time, had sex in a McDonald's bathroom and stuck it up the wrong hole, causing the girl to bleed everywhere. Wasn't really much of a rumor since he confirmed it about 2 days after it went around the year. Let me guess, she wasn't loving it. AI. Macarena. There was a girl in my high school whose boyfriend stuck it in the wrong hole, and she pooped all over the bed. Turns out it was her parents' bed they were in. What is with people who fuck in their parents' bed? You know they probably fuck there too, right? Does no one else find that weird? Decades ago, but one of the kids in the high school killed and ate a younger kid. Then he used the victim's skull in the school production of Hamlet. Michael Woodmansey, Wikipedia webpage. The head pom, who would go down on literally any football player, had a pregnancy scare, failed 12th grade English and moved to a different county to not face the small town shame of being the only member of the senior class to not graduate. Read pom as porn. Nothing changed. She was still the headmaster at your school though. The head pom. What are you, 90 years old? I'm in my 20s and we had a separate pom and cheerleading squad at my high school. What is a pom? Like the things cheerleaders stick on their hands? That's a pom-pom. From googling pom versus cheerleading, it looks like the distinction is that when a school has both, cheerleading is generally more like what we think of as competitive cheerleading, so like stunts and flips and stuff. Pom is standing on the sideline leading cheers. Our mayor stuffed the ballot box with the names of the dead. Upvote for being one of the sole stories that didn't involve high school and was simply hometown. That the theater kids would use the woman's bathroom in the theater to have sex. Turned out it was true when a teacher walked in on a couple going at it on the sink. They ended up locking the theater bathrooms during the day and only opened them for performances. It sucked because those bathrooms were nicer and quieter than the other ones. Goes to show how horrible some school bathrooms are. Kids were fucking in this one and it was nicer and quieter than the other ones. Those bathrooms were seriously awesome. I used to sometimes go to the theater and nap in the balcony during my free periods and then use the bathroom before going to my next class. The boys' bathroom was opposite of the girls', so I never heard anything. In my school bathroom you walk in, take a breath and get high because everyone goes there to get stoned. Theater kids at my school used to bang on the chair in the green room. Everyone made jokes about how nobody should ever sit in that chair. Also lots of kids had sex in the pit. Edit. Shit guys, my GF saw this comment and found out that this is my Reddit username abort. The pit and the prop room at my high school. Theater and band kids are always the most sexually active in any high school, and the theater, and thus theater bathrooms, is often in a separate wing from the rest of the school. In other words, this is very common. Rumor in my high school that a chick banged a teacher for an A turned out to be half true. He told her she would get an A or an F, depending on if she fucked him or not. He confessed some 30 years after the fact. The girl in question was a friend of mine's mom. Not a rumor, but a kid in one of my classes told me he was going to tour with his brothers for the summer and wasn't coming back to school next fall. I thought he was full of shit and told him good luck sarcastically. Kings of Leon are a pretty popular band I hear. that this one guy blew some old man for a PlayStation 1. The saddest part of this was that the PlayStation 2 had already been released. I still laugh about this whenever I think about it. I didn't really laugh at the story, but I was greatly amused that you laugh every time you think about it. I actually laughed at the story. If I'm sucking dick for a game system, it sure as fuck better be current general. Frankly, I'd demand a PC with a 980 at least. Even if you just get the 980, you really think you give a $500 blowjob? How about $105 blowjobs in a row? Try not to suck any dicks on the way to Newegg. Maybe he just really wanted to blow the dude. The PlayStation was just a bonus. The star basketball player was into younger girls. Let's be painfully explicit here. The guy was ripped. He was Shaq foot 10, and probably at least a head taller than anyone at our school. He was white, but tanned like a glazed onion. Girls would be all over him like moths to the Salt Street lamp in a dark neighborhood. Freshman and sophomore year he dated around, but junior and senior year he went exclusively for the freshmen. And as some of us noted, they were the younger looking freshmen. Word got around that the guy was using steroids. Never proven, and apparently tested, so possibly wrong. But some guys used to say he likes little girls because he has a little dick. I never really believed it. His last girlfriend in high school ended up being this Asian girl who went to Harvard for medicine or some shit. And he went off with his basketball scholarship to university. He was always cool, calm, and colleged, and he was just sweet. No way would he be messing around with younger girls. Then one of my friends called me from high school, when we were around 25, and told me to look him up. Lo and behold, he had a pretty little mugshot after distributing child pornography. The guy could have been drowning in pink, living in the puss. He could have been fucking Tom Brady's fucking wife. It's unbelievable to me, but it turned out to be true. Source me. I think I went to your high school. Can't get too explicit because AskReddit has rule 4. Was your school famous for the tofu incident? If so, that should clear things up. That was way more famous than the basketball player. Well, what the fuck was the tofu incident? It's a long story. I'll try to make it brief. Basically, there was a goody guy at our school. I don't know if he was religious or anything, but he was generally the sweetest kid and everyone liked him. He was really shy, but he always had nice intentions. So if anyone tried to mess with him, he'd have friends who would back him up. He was kind of the guy that every nice guy thinks of themselves. He was pretty smart, got decent grades, was on the varsity tennis team. He was probably attractive to most girls, but pretty much everybody knew that he was into a particular girl. This girl was exactly the kind of girl that should have been into him. She was shy, though maybe not as shy as he was. She had a pretty face and a gorgeous figure. I'm talking porn star tits, pale skin, and not pasty like Elmer's glue, and an ass that would make most boys' pants point. She had kind of an awkward and annoying laugh, but I guess he was into it. She was a total goody, besides, with good grades, and probably never even held hands with anyone before. It was kind of lucky for her that she wasn't into dating, because her dating life would have been ruined by him being into her. There were some guys that were considering asking her out, that ended up being talked out of it by his friends, saying they really wanted the shy boy to have a shot at her. Anyway, this guy did everything for that girl. He was quite the artist, and wrote beautiful poems, in fucking iambic pentameter or whatever shit he was into, dedicated to her. We knew this because he shared them with one of his closest friends, who shared them with us, saying this is the best poem I've ever read. He made art for her sometimes and gave them to her, and gave her flowers on her birthday. He even brought her lunch to school before, and he was well known in our school's culinary department for his talent. He never asked her out, because he'd heard that she didn't want to date yet, and he wanted to respect her wishes. The dude was a character. Some of us really wanted them to get together. Later into high school, relationships were changing, and friends were changing. The guy told the girl not to bring lunch to school one Friday because he was preparing something special for her. He'd made her stir-fried vegetables before, that she loved, and she was a vegetarian, so she was pretty excited for it. The next day at lunch, he gave her a Tupperware full of tofu dripping and sauce that smelled, honestly, delightful. I would have taken it from her and eaten it, but something seemed off. All of his new friends were smiling so big, and they weren't smiling at him, as if to hope he would get together with her. They were smiling at her. I looked at some of the guys I was sitting with, and they noticed it, too, but we didn't say anything. Meanwhile, the boy himself seemed to be shitting himself, hoping she'd like it. It was almost as if all the hundreds of eyes in this cafeteria were on her. She took a bite and she loved it. She really loved it. She took a bite, swallowed it, and said, "Wow, this is really good." The guy's friends cheered around him. While he seemed nervous, they seemed way too happy. My friends and I got up and walked to the table, sensing something was up. She was a thin girl, but this tofu made her seem like she was either starved, or like a fat girl who couldn't get enough. She literally licked the sauce off the bottom of the Tupperware when it was done. She asked him what was the recipe for this. As his friends were guffawing behind him, he listed off the tofu he got, some high quality organic shit from who knows where, and spices I can't even begin to pronounce, let alone tell you where they came from or what they taste like. I thought that was that, and I was about to sit back down, when one of my friends asked the boy, "So why are all of your friends laughing so much? What was in there? Like a ghost pepper or something?" The boy turned red, like I've never seen a kid so red. One of his friends came back to the table, and gasping for breath since he was laughing so hard, he said, "We told him that girls fall in love with you. They fall in love when they taste your cum." I'll never forget this girl's face. For a second it looked like she wanted to tear that boy apart, but then she saw the shy guy, curiously looking up and nodding. This typically smart guy, who was so oblivious. He was sincerely wondering if she had fallen in love with him. He had no idea, until a split second later, that he had made the biggest mistake of his life. So the girl was furious at his friend. She looked at him. She realized he had no idea. She realized what she had just done, and she started bawling. She sat on her chair for a second, while some of her girlfriends started screaming at the boys, and some of them tried consoling her. She ran out, leaving everything behind, and the boy had his head in his hands, sobbing too. I think at that point he realized he'd been had. I was almost ready to punch his friends, but when I turned to look at them, they were running away from other guys and girls who were chasing them down. The 4 or 5 faculty in the cafeteria who finally realized something was happening were running every which way to try to calm people down. So that's the tofu incident. The aftermath was a little more boring though. Oh Jesus, those poor kids. The friends are a bunch of fucking assholes. Dart. What happened next? Pretty much what you'd expect. One of my friends went to the boy and made him realize that what he just did was not only incredibly stupid, but also likely against the law. He was still a minor, but he went to the principal's office to turn himself in. Apparently, while he was in there, he kept asking about the girl. The girl had ran to the nurse's office and locked herself in the bathroom, where she stayed until she was picked up by her parents. They had a long meeting with the principal before leaving. A fight would probably have started. There were definitely kids throwing punches, if the teachers weren't so quick to be on the scene and warn the kids to knock it off. There was a lot of yelling and screaming and pushing, so apparently the whole office building, including attendants and all of that, was just packed with students who had gotten detentions or whatever. I don't really remember how that stuff worked. The entire school was abuzz for the rest of that afternoon, and would probably have been for the whole week if this didn't happen on a Friday. Apparently the guys' friends were taken out of their classes before school ended, and they all had a discussion with the assistant principal or something. Technically nothing they had done wrong was done at school, so some kids were saying they wouldn't be punished. They were all suspended, even the boy who didn't know any better. First for 2 days, then for a week. Only the boy ever came back, and he was told to write an apology to the girl. He had a fucking book written for her, in one of those folders with the clear plastic covers, detailing that he had no idea what he was doing, and he only ever wanted her to like him, and that he was so sorry and he would never forgive himself. He was depressed, probably clinically depressed. One of his best friends noticed this and told the counselor about it, asking if they did sessions for more than one student at a time. He pointed out that the girl and the boy would likely do a better job coping if they had a chance to talk it out. I didn't know the girl that well, but I guess she was pretty down about the whole thing too, and maybe for more than you might think. The boy was adamantly against the counseling, saying that the girl never wanted to talk to him again. and how he could never live with himself, up until the girl ended up telling him, personally, that she was okay with it, to this day, and I feel like an old man now reminiscing about this. I have no fucking clue what that counselor did. He always seemed just like any other clueless counselor who just did this shit for a living. But after 1 hour, the boy was already obviously better. They had sessions every school day, and after a couple of weeks, they were friends again. Meanwhile, there were rumors going around that some of the other boys had been expelled, and that if you brought up eating cum, you could get expelled too for sexual harassment. I don't know how true that was, but nobody really gave them shit for that anymore. I hear they ended up together, but that could just be some bullshit 10-year reunion garbage. Neither of them showed up. Now that is one hell of a story. I don't even care if it's true. I seriously don't care. Can we please just assume they ended up together? I can't imagine having to think that guy will live the rest of his life dreading over what could have been removed. It's probably my best story from high school, or the biggest one anyway. That put your basketball story to shame. Thanks for the follow-up. You wrote the story so well, there are dozens of us emotionally invested in them. I hear they ended up together, but that could just be some bullshit 10-year reunion garbage. Gad, I hope so. Neither of them showed up. Perhaps she developed a taste for him after all. This, funny enough, is one of my favorite stories I've read on here. It was definitely one of the biggest events during my school life. I think this one is going down in Reddit history. Shackfoot 10 has been added to my vocabulary. Thanks. That's a classic preacher's daughter scenario. I went to very conservative Christian high school. One of the dean's sons was probably the worst kid in his grade. I think he got in trouble for saying fuck, which is expulsion or at least suspension grounds at that school. Also, the high school principal had a son who ran away from home, and her daughter was caught topless in the backseat of a guy's car. When I was a sophomore in high school, our county sheriff was assassinated by a rifle shot from a considerable distance in the midst of election season. Rumors started flying that the guy who was running against him, a former deputy, had something to do with it, but it just seemed too sensational, like something out of a movie. Sure enough, after a little time passes, it's confirmed that the deputy had a former Marine do the hit, and the town lost its shit, made national news, and I think even A&E came and did a TV show about it. If anyone is interested in reading about it, the sheriff's name was Sam Catron. Happened in 2002. A classmate of mine was absent with Mono. I learned about a year later that she had actually been pregnant, and her mom forced her to give up the kid. Oh, and the father was my older brother, and my entire family and the whole school knew except me. When I was a sophomore, there was a rumor that a teacher had went under the stairs in a hallway because she dropped something and caught a freshman blowing a senior. No one really believed it until we came back the next year and they had installed mirrors all around the stairs so you could see every angle. I had always heard this rumor that the new principal at my elementary school was fired because he was caught banging the 3rd grade teacher. To be fair, she was smoking hot, which was super awkward because she became our language arts teacher in 6-8, so she went from having these sweet little kids to a bunch of preteens staring at her massive tits. Anyways, I just found out like 2 days ago it was true. That was why her husband, I'm a straight man, but this guy is literally one of those guys from a truck commercial and genuinely awesome, divorced her and is now married to a former Brazilian cop who is just as hot. Did you ever find out why the new wife stopped being Brazilian? If you're from California, you probably at least know a school that sends the seniors to Disneyland for grad night. They keep the park open way late and pack it full of partying teenagers. What could go wrong? These two guys decided grad night would be a fabulous time to try mushrooms. They got way too high, jumped some fences, and were escorted out of the park by security. We heard this all secondhand from their classmates and assumed it was some kind of exaggeration. Until next year when we were told we wouldn't be going to Disneyland anymore. TLDR. 2 stoner kids got our school banned from Disneyland. Edit some additional info. The school was in Central California. As I heard it, they got into a water feature and were splashing each other. But I don't know if that part is true. And yes, Disneyland officially asked our school not to come back. Edit 2 stop PMing me asking which high school I went to lol. Dude, everyone did mushrooms during Disneyland grad night. We just didn't get caught for it. One of the art teachers and one of the Latin teachers were in a feud. Where did they end up having sex? As so far everyone in this thread has been fucking. The art bathroom upstairs for weed and cigarettes. Middle school math teacher fucked the high school baseball coach so that he would put her son on varsity team instead of the freshman baseball team. Everyone found out her and her husband almost got a divorce when he found out. Apparently they worked through it and are still together. Edit. Accidentally a word. I know you're upset, honey, but would you really be able to look your son in the eye if he was only playing freshman baseball? That Becky and Toby had sex. Becky was the weird girl who verged on being a social pariah. She seemed depressed, like she came from a shitty home. I'd only seen her smile maybe half a dozen times since kindergarten, though I tried to cheer her up when we were assigned lockers next to one another during our senior year. She never wore a bra. I'm sure she didn't even own one. And I believe this contributed to her image of her as a weird, sexually and otherwise, wrong kind of person. Toby was a sophomore who had a learning disability and who also came from the wrong family. He didn't have the right clothes or grooming to at least make him appear like he fit in. So he stood out whenever the popular older boys decided to pretend to be his friend. He wanted to be liked so badly that he was kind of like their monkey, jumping to perform anything they suggested he do. Somehow, perhaps in remedial classes, Becky and Toby met and he took a shine to her. I watched him court her every day after school from behind my locker door. Their conversations were off kilter and sometimes funny, and I'd laugh with my friends about them later, which I feel bad about now. It didn't take long for the senior boys to find out that Toby was seeing Becky. They teased him with increasing cruelty about whether he was a virgin and when it was that he would pop Becky's cherry. I watched this passively from the cafeteria. There wasn't much anyone could do. Those boys had several monkeys they enjoyed fucking with, and no one wanted to tell the friendless kids that they were really being publicly humiliated. Eventually, it became supposed common knowledge that Toby was banging Becky. I always assumed that they weren't actually having sex, that the older boys were just starting shit. Now, it's been years and I can't remember exactly how it went down. But I heard later, through the teacher grapevine, my mother was a teacher, not a grape, that Toby may have been acting abusively toward Becky, but no one really knows the truth. However, later in senior year it became apparent that Becky was pregnant, and the jokes only grew worse. She had Toby's child the summer after we graduated and the pair raised her in our hometown, while the popular boys, my friends, and I all went off to college and to travel and to work. Becky and Toby lived off McDonald's wages in order to raise a baby that resulted from sex that neither of them were ready for. I can't truly blame those boys, but I do. I also blame our shitty ass counselors and nurses and teachers who hear rumors like these and watch abuse like this and never actually do anything effective to help it. Edit. Remembered the details of the abuse thing. Apparently Toby, at 16 or 17, had some kind of sexual contact with a 13-year-old, and there were titters among faculty about it. I have no idea how he privately treated Becky. I must have just associated the rappy connotations of the other incident with her. A teacher, not a grape. I needed this. Seriously though, I think support systems within schools need to be changed. Whenever I went to my counselor for anything, schedule change, or social issue, he'd just flat out say nothing he could do. Oh, man. This is truly a sad situation. You're right, you can't really change how these people are being perceived by their peers. So what can you as another student really do? Just want to say, I like how you explained this though. Kind of what you think was going on behind the scenes. I haven't seen a lot of empathy insight like this in the other stories. Our extremely flamboyant, perfect hair, nice dress shoes high school counselor was in the closet. He never came out, but he was rumored to have been having relations with one of the HS guys. As soon as the kid turned 18, he moved in with the counselor and they were seen in public together a few times being lovey-dovey. The senior class a year ahead of me in high school had this really big popular group, and one of the main couples was honestly two of the best looking people I've ever seen. They had been dating for at least a year, but apparently their friend group was really incestuous and I guess they were just so pretty they slept with everyone. Well, one of them got some strange from outside of our high school and contracted syphilis. Lo and behold, not much later at least a quarter of the senior class had syphilis. Edit. Sorry for the confusion. I know the difference between incestuous and promiscuous. I use the former because I guess it's just so weird to me that a friend group would sleep around with each other like that. Regardless, they weren't related, just super open I guess lol. A girl was giving rim jobs in the bathrooms in exchange for drugs. Turned out not to be true, she just gave rim jobs because she liked to. When I moved away from my old school in 6th grade, someone spread a rumor that I was a lesbian because I was obsessed with Lady Gaga. 6 years later, moved past the Lady Gaga phase, but definitely a flaming homo. Just talked to my younger brother today. I'm married with 2 kids and he swore I was up to hardcore lesbianic activity in high school because I was BFFs with a super butch. I've never so much as pecked another girl on the lips haha. We used to sit on her roof and she'd play Led Zeppelin on her sweet ass. Sunburst lep all while we chain smoked Cowboy Killers. I knew everyone thought we banged, but I never confirmed or denied because had I been a lesbian or even just curious, it would have been an honor to be one with her. She's a rad lady. At my high school our guidance counselor was notorious for shaming any girl who she knew or suspected was having sex or even had just done it once. I mean she'd call the parents and tell her kids to spread around that these girls were infected with STDs and were just general sluts. A lot of girls ended up transferring or becoming pariahs, one even slitterists and was barely saved by her mom. Anyway, during my senior year a rumor started floating around that one of the guidance counselor's new victims, this sweet mousy girl from Minnesota, let's call her Miss D, was quite adventurous in bed with guys and apparently loved pegging. Naturally most of us knew to take it with a grain of salt and just ignore the rumors that spread. Fast forward a few months and I'm at a party the Miss D's house, drunk off my ass trying to find a place to sleep it off. Her parents were out of town for the week and she said any and all could crash if they needed it, and I come to what I think is a guest bedroom. When I open the door I see her humping away into the ass of one of the football team's linemen with a strap on that would make Big Dick Johnson feel inadequate. I stood there for a moment trying to comprehend what I was witnessing and without a word I closed the door and sat down in the kitchen where I passed out. When I woke up I thought it might have been a dream, but then when I was leaving her house, nursing a massive hangover mind you, I locked eyes with Miss D and she winked at me and put a finger to her lips. We never spoke of that incident again, but we've kept in touch over the years. Apparently she still has that monster she used that night and has offered to show me a thing or two on occasion. And before you ask, no, I have not been fucked in the ass by Miss D. My high school once cancelled lunch one day because we damn near had a riot after 8 fights broke out. I was on a field trip with 100 other students. My high school had a total of 2,300, and we were all getting texts from our friends on the bus. Edit. This was in Washington. While some of these are super fucked up, the closest I've got is one girl getting arrested for selling pot brownies, and in junior high a history teacher started dating the gym teacher, neither of which are particularly scandalous. That I was fucking the Spanish teacher. I acted really offended and cried about it to the administration so they'd squash it. I even publicly apologized to the Spanish teacher like it was my fault, because he was a client of mine outside of school, and I really didn't want people knowing I was hooking. Edit. I'm a dude. The 2 school secretaries were a lesbian couple. It was just a joke, though when I was waiting to get back into the school from eating lunch out, all school security systems went next level because of Sandy Hook. One of the secretaries stood up and kissed the other on the cheek and walked out the office. Doesn't confirm anything but some good evidence. I'm not really in with the crowd who hears all the rumors, but I have heard two that stand out. 1. A current sophomore had sex with her dog and her friend's dog while her friend filmed it. My friend actually saw the video which confirmed it. 2. A girl had sex with 4 guys in one night at some party. Didn't really need confirming since all the guys and the girl were talking about it the next week. It, CEX, underage 6, extramarital 6, teenage pregnancy 6, statutory rape 6, BJ4 PlayStation 6. Also, tofu story, that this one girl was bald and wore a wig to school. Not a lot of people know the validity of this rumor, but I do. She was my girlfriend for 2 years, then she cheated on me on our anniversary. She also had the nerve to spread rumors about me to everyone we knew. So when people ask me if she really does wear a wig, I'm not scared to, nor do I feel fucked up when I tell them yes, I've seen her without it. Hell, I even put it on. that this sophomore chick who was dating a 20-something-year-old creep had another girl in their relationship. The three of them stayed together for a year or two. Far as I know, the basketball coach and his female assistant smoke weed before every game. Source: I'm the coach. The top group of the chorus my senior was apparently having orgies. I heard the rumor. Then someone who was there gave me details. The chorus teacher also picked a new senior every year to have as a girlfriend. No idea if it got physical. This eventually got out because the flavor of the year's mother found the love note the teacher had written. The funny thing was, I wasn't in chorus. People just told me things. It's too bad that this is guaranteed to be buried and never seen. But my sophomore year there was rumors that someone was fucking the sheep in the ag barn. Sure enough, junior year the ag teacher heard something and went in there to find the senior going to town. Edit: I grew up in a small town in Texas. Also, my top rated comment is about a guy I knew who fucked a sheep. We had a celebrity in our high school who went on to win an Emmy much later on. Between freshman and sophomore year she came back a different person, enhanced. Turns out she did actually have the procedure but it wasn't verified until later on. Back when I was in school, a girl used to fuck older men, 30-year-olds and older, for cigarettes and weed. She was 14 or 15 years old at the time. Not many people knew about it, but it turned out to be true. Nobody really cared as she was already known as a slut around the school. Consular: I feel like nobody even cared you signed your username at the end of your comment. Jesus, cigarettes and weed. I was doing it for Jesus. One fuck equals one blessing. Should have done it for a PlayStation 1. That's really sad for the girl. Do you know what happened to her? 8 seniors and juniors, 4 male and 4 female, had an orgy on the 23rd yard line of the football field while there was nobody else there. Of course, it was true and I'll never regret being a part of it. Male soccer coach hooking up with female players after his wife divorced him. Female assistant coach fit lady banging the football team's top. Non-Mormon players. Mr. Riley tried to scalp himself after finding out his wife left him for a woman. He wears his bangs low to hide the scars. Also he's colorblind. Christian and Daniel both had secret brain tumors. Tiffany was a hermaphrodite, and shaved her beard for the graduation rehearsal, but neglected to again days later for the actual ceremony. Also her dick flopped like crazy during games of basketball in pay. Edit: for all those asking, these are true. And I went to high school in San Diego. Also, I too remember the butthole surfers, and as it turned out Goldie never had the HIV. TLDR, creepy teachers and people having sex with a wide variety of household pets. That I slept with a student teacher that everyone kind of thought I did during my junior year, but figured I'd never be able to, so it stayed a rumor. She was a fairly attractive redhead with a tattoo behind her ear. I always wished we'd been able to make a go at a real relationship, but we had to cool it when the rumors started, and by the time she wasn't student teaching at my school anymore, she had a new boyfriend. We met by chance few years later, after I had graduated, had lunch a few times, but nothing ever came of it. Wonder what she's doing now.